Hi everyone, welcome to another Discovering Co-op Careers session. Today we have Andy, who's going to talk about his role as Head of Operations. If anyone has any questions, make sure to pop them in the chat and Andy will go through them if we have time at the end. So take it away.
Yeah, so morning, afternoon, I think it's afternoon now, it's a minute past. Hi everyone, I'm Andy Baird and I'm the Head of Operations for our food stores in Scotland. So really excited to be here. I did this last year actually, but it was a bit different last year because I just moved into this role. So now I've got a year under my belt. So hopefully it will be a bit different if you're on last year. So first of all, before we go into the next slide, what do I do? So I am the Head of Operations, as I said, for Scotland, and I look after our about 240 food stores in Scotland. So I don't have the big ones, the ones we call multi-mission, but the majority of the other ones I look after. So that's what I do. And before that, I spent 8 years in logistics for the Co-op, with the majority of that at Newhouse Depot as the general manager there. So that's me. So let's go on to the next slide. So in a nutshell, what do we do? So my team is called SCO1. So we're the food operations team and we're part of the wider food retail team. So in terms of how the team's laid out, there's me. So I'm the head of operations and I report into the food director, which is Kate Graham, which most of you will know Kate. I have 10 operations managers that lead our 3,500 colleagues in Scotland. And they're spread out all the way from, South Ayrshire to the Orkney Islands. So a big patch and 220 odd stores. And again, just in terms of this role, I've just put this here because when people think about roles and people leadership roles in the Co-op, they seem to think it's all about just managing stuff. And it's not just about managing stuff at the Co-op or NICE or whatever business you're in. It's about membership, it's about community, and it's about participation in events. So that's it in a nutshell. In terms of the wider team, there are now 8 heads of operations. So myself and Michael McCarthy, we look after Scotland. So let me just anyway. So Michael looks after the big stores. So that's how we split ourselves up. So that's what I do. The next slide. Okay, right. So this is an interesting one actually. So I was asked to talk a bit about behaviours. So what behaviours are needed to work in the job roles within the team. And I looked back at the slides I did last year. Some of it's similar, but I thought I'd just expand on some of it actually, because I've probably learned a lot myself last year. So the first one I've put is resilience. So you need to be resilient in these jobs, whether it's an operations manager, a head of operations, or actually even a store manager, because they're tough jobs. And I added this actually, I think it's quite important to note that no one was born with amazing resilience. It comes over time. And I really wish someone had told me that at the start of my career, because I remember when I left uni and I joined the Royal Mail graduate scheme, and I seen all these senior leaders and they just looked calm and composed. And when the whole world was falling down around them, and I thought, oh God, I don't have that. But you're not born with that. It grows over time. It grows through going through tough situations, through good situations, looking at some of the good leaders you've had, some of the not good leaders you have. So I think what I'm trying to say there is if you're going through a tough time at work and you sort of beat yourself up to say, I should have more resilience, don't worry about it. It comes. It does come. And there will be times when you still feel not so great about things. So it's really important, that one actually. You need that resilience, but you learn it and you get it. It doesn't just happen. Interpersonal skills. Okay, so first and foremost, whether you're an ops manager or a hop, or a store manager or a team leader or any other role where you lead people, it's a people role. So we are judged by our ways of being, our behaviours, the support and development we give our team, and not just the results. So I'll give a good example. When I was at Newhouse at the depot, we were spending a lot of money over and above what we should have been spending in terms of the budget. And And I felt comfortable with that. And my boss, who's Ian Gibb, felt comfortable with that because there was reasons for that. And I think, over that tough year that was going through COVID, we got to the end of it and, we improved the results by the end of it. But we wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't have the people skills, my team in the depot. So it's not just about the results, it's how you get them. And this might seem confusing, but I've put inputs create outputs. And the inputs in these roles are how we are. So if you act well, if you treat your people well, if you behave, if you work hard, then the outputs will come. I think in terms of that interpersonal skills piece, if you don't treat people well, if you bully people, if you force people into doing stuff they don't want to do, then you might get results for the first year, but after that, it's not sustainable because people leave. People like to work for someone that they trust and like. So I think it's important to call that out. Next one's relationship building. So this isn't just limited to your direct reports. So it needs to be relationships across create, buy, move, and sell, and the other businesses as well. So you can end up being too insular in your own sort of business unit at the time. And one of the things that I really benefited from when I worked in the logistics was having great relationships with store colleagues. So Alan Campbell, who I swapped over with and is now in Newhouse as the general manager, had a great relationship with him and the ROMs at the time, called Regional Operations Managers, or the RMs. And that just really helped. So we'd have catch-ups during the bad times, catch-ups during the good times, and it just helped build that relationship. Now, as part of my development, and this is why I've called this out here actually, because it's important for all of us, is to improve and create more relationships across create, buy, move, and sell. So create is proposition. So that's the team that decides what goes in our store and when and all that sort of stuff. Buy is the commercial teams that buy the products. Move is logistics and supply chain. And sell is, our Co-op stores, our NISA stores, online. So I think it's really important to get out of your lane as such and just try and find out a bit about the other businesses because you'll start to understand them a bit more, which is great. And then self-sacrifice. It's something my line manager, Kate, always talks about. And this isn't necessarily just about sacrificing personal things at home. It's not really about that. It's about making decisions for the wider good of the co-op. And what you can see, conflicting KPIs, but you need to look at the best decision for the co-op overall. And sometimes that can actually affect you negatively. So I'll give maybe a couple of examples. So one of them, if you're in store, is delivery windows. So we've reduced or increase the delivery windows that we can deliver to in our stores. Now, for store colleagues, they might think, well, that's not great. We're not, getting as good a service as we used to. But I've got the logistics hat and the store hat on. But from a logistics point of view, I know how much millions and millions fuel, drivers' wages, etc., costs. So there needs to be a balance, and sometimes that balance tips one way, but you just need to look at the bigger picture and the wider good of the co-op. And sometimes that can be tough because it can actually lead to you not achieving one of your performance measures. And I think that's okay, because if you can explain that you've done something for a reason, for the wider good, it's always going to be looked favourably on. So it's hard. I know it's hard when you've got scorecard and objectives, and sometimes you want to just be selfish and tick every box, but sometimes you just can't. You can't. So that's probably looking back at the main behaviours that I felt that really help within field operational roles, tough jobs, people jobs, and sometimes you need to do things for the wider good rather than just yourself. And that's kind of where I was at. Changed that a bit from last year actually, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at with that one. The next bit was skills. So obviously a difference between behaviours and skills. Delegation skills are key. You can't do it all yourself. Trust your people. And again, I wish I knew this early in my career. So when I started my career, I was at Royal Mail and I was given this project to do. And there was a lot of data analysis, and we had a data analysis team, and it was sounds quite boring, but it was about machinery and mail sorting machines, and I found it quite interesting at the time. But I remember, because I was that keen to impress because I was a graduate and I was new in my career. I was 22 years old. I thought, right, I need to do this all myself. So I was on early shift at work. I'd do 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. I'd come home, I'd fire up my laptop and I'd do hours and hours of data type stuff. I'd maybe have a break for dinner, then I'd get back to it. And I was probably doing, 18-hour days. And I remember my partner, who's now my wife now, having to put me back to sleep. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night and talk about work. And she used to say, I work, just calm down, kind of, and be all confused and stuff like that. So I think I didn't learn it till a bit later on, but that was like, you cannot do everything yourself. In actual fact, if you end out trying that, you'll burn yourself out, you'll become less effective in your role, and your performance will dip. So it's about being efficient in your role. So, and when you've got a team of people, you need to trust them. There's certain things that I would love to do myself and dig into it, but I know I've got a great team of ops managers that can do that for me, and some of it actually matches their skills. Next one's critical thinking. So taking a lot of information and opinions and balancing risk to come to decisions that you can stand over. So what I've learned is a lot of the time there's not a right or a wrong decision, there's just a decision. And you need to be able to stand over that decision with confidence. It might go wrong, might be the best decision ever. Sometimes it's just luck. And I guess it's a bit like a football manager or a manager of any sports team. You look at all the people you've got, you look at what their skills are, and you decide what team you're going to field, and you'll do it based on your knowledge and ability. But it might go right, it might not go right. So I think for me, just coming to the realization that you have to make decisions that aren't right or wrong and stand over them. And I think that's really important. And example I had a year ago was there was talk about marginal stores. So you might hear about marginal stores that don't make a lot of money, but they still make a bit of profit. And, we were getting into a place where we were talking about maybe closing one of these stores. And I remember thinking, we've got a bit more to give, and deciding not to close that store. And it's doing well now. Could have gone the other way, and I had to come back and say, well, I've made the wrong decision. But I think you can only stand over the decisions you make, and you can only do that with information you've got at the time. So critical thinking there, it really helps. Adaptability kind of links in with the self-sacrifice piece. So there's always things happening that are outside of your control, including large-scale change. So you need to adapt. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to realize that, you might have your diary sorted for the next 3 months, but something might come in and just blow that all out the way. And it's just the fact of life. You just kind of need to get on with it. Last year, a good example is if anyone here is in the store teams, they'll remember Pump Up the Volume, where we had a volume challenge in stores. We needed to sell more through the till. And all of a sudden, we've started with volume promotions, what we did to do that. Came out of nowhere, the right thing to do. We had to change our approach. We had to communicate a lot, and it actually worked. But it's tough, and you need to be able to adapt to things like that. And I was actually, the second part of that, I was actually at a session with Dan McEwen, who's Kate's HR business partner, a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month ago. And the Hops were taken through a presentation on change. Because, as well as people managers, we're change managers, and it links into large scale change happening, and how, whether it's Project Lucy, whether it's, opening new stores, whatever it is that's happening, and how we adapt to that. And it was a really good session, because what Dan taught us was we shouldn't beat ourselves up for fearing change. In actual fact, when you're looking at some of the science behind it, our brains are actually hardwired to reject change. And I never knew that. And I thought, oh God, if I'm struggling with this change, it's something to do with me. I need to give myself a shake. I need to pick myself up. But it's not the case. Our brains don't like change. It's just it's a human thing. We don't like change. So if we can accept that, and accept that sometimes we won't feel great about it, then we move on to, okay, don't feel great about this. How am I going to deal with it? And I think that's a really important point to pull out, because we change constantly. in terms of the Co-op family of businesses. So it is a fact of life now. And the next one's important, right? So the above three skills there, I've put they're transferable no matter what job you do. Whether you are a people leader, whether you're in the project world, whether you're in the people world, they are transferable skills. And in terms of sort of learning those new skills or adapting or keeping up to speed, just find the medium that's best for you. You'll often get, people that will try and direct you to a certain TED talk or a certain book. You must read this book. You must watch this TED talk. This podcast's absolutely brilliant, but it might not suit you. Everyone's got different learning styles. So I don't particularly like books. When I read a book, it's usually like a thriller. So there's an author called Linwood Barclay. So if you need a tip, read Linwood Barclay, good thrillers. But I quite like TED Talks, just because they're 15 minutes. But what I will say is find the medium that's good for you, because for some of it, it just won't work. If you don't necessarily like podcasts, you might be listening, then your mind might go elsewhere. You might be scrolling on your phone and it just doesn't work. So find the medium that's good for you. Okay. Career paths. So I've tried to go a bit wider than just the role that I'm in just now. We are a lot more joined together as a family of businesses now, and even within that family of businesses, between the different functions, we're joined together. If I look at the HOP team, Caroline Holdsworth, who's one of the HOPs, she came from the commercial world. Gary Williams was in a risk role before, and he's now a head of operations, and he's now looking at lunar, so he's moved into sort of projects as well. If you look at myself, I was in logistics, and then we've also got people in the heads of operations roles that have worked their way up from CTM level at store. And then a classic example is Kate Graham, who was a Saturday colleague in our store when she started her career and is now the food director. So there's no one route, and it'll just, sometimes you'll have a plan of what route you want to go to, sometimes it'll pivot. For myself, I probably wanted to stay in logistics until I'd say the end of the pandemic, and I thought, I fancy something a bit different here. And what I found out really quickly was that the skills are transferable. You have to learn, you have to learn the business, you have to learn the KPIs. I've got this iPad here that shows me a lot of the food KPIs. A lot of them still learning, and that's okay after a year. And that is something you'll continuously learn. I think it's about the transferable skills that I've outlined earlier on. So in terms of some of the career pathways, you can go the what I call traditional route, working in a store, whether you're a CTM, team leader, store manager, ops manager. We then have this new regional ops manager role that's in some of the more challenging areas of the UK. So that is a good path to get a role like that before you can maybe jump up to a HOP. So I think that's a really excellent role. It should help us operationally, but I think it's a great career path for people that are in food ops. In terms of logistics, obviously myself and Alan Campbell have been having a lot of conversations over the last year. And when we talk about talent in Scotland now, and it'll go wider, we don't just look at stores or logistics. We'll be talking about some of our people and say, well, I've got someone here. Could they do a good job at the depot? And Alan will be saying the same. I think they'd be quite good in stores or in projects or things like that. So, and I've just seen it pop up, Kate, and I'll come to the question later, but I'm a big fan of squiggly careers as well. And I actually think when I've taken people into the depot in the past that have worked in stores, it just adds, it's good for the colleague, but it just adds to that sort of balance, that you've got in the depot. And we talk about diversity a lot, which is really important to us, but there's also diversity just isn't those protected characteristics that are so important to us. We've got diversity of thought, diversity of skills, diversity of experience. And if we can mash that all up, then it's one of these things where it benefits everyone. So I think that's one of the things I will say. The businesses are coming a lot closer. Funeral care, I've got to give a shout out to Stacey Aitken, who I've now got on my team. She's on secondment as an ops manager from funeral care. And again, when I look at the skills Stacey had learned in funeral care, she did have a store background, went to funeral care to, sort of help her career there and came back. She's brought something to my team that no one else has. And that's not saying they can't do it. It's just a different perspective and a different way of dealing with things. So it's just, people talk about it a lot, but until you actually see the benefit that brings, it's fantastic. And then if I look at out the way, people going out of my team, and when I talk about my team, I include everyone in Scotland. It's not just my 10 direct reports. People have gone in project roles. People have gone in OSC. People have gone to HR or the people team. People have gone to risk and loss. They've gone away. Sometimes they've stayed away, which is fine because they've made a go of it. Then sometimes they've came back. Sometimes they've gone away and wanted to come back. Sometimes they've gone away and not wanted to come back. It's all fine. It's all good, and that change and that churn is excellent. So I think what I'm trying to say is there's not one career path. What I would say when you're looking to move on are some of these golden nuggets of advice. And I like that wee golden nugget, Jess. I don't know if it was yourself that did that. Looks almost like a bit of a chicken nugget, a McDonald's nugget, but we'll say it's a golden one. So some nuggets of advice. Try your hardest to shake off imposter syndrome. Everyone experiences it at some point in their career, no matter what their role, their age, their experience, no matter who you are, where you're from. It's natural to think about. But if you let it consume you, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you'll think, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. Your head will go down and then you won't be able to do it. It's not a case of fake it till you make it. I hear that a lot, actually. I hear it at work, I hear it in social media. By saying fake it, you're kind of demeaning your potential there. You're almost saying, I'm not good enough, when everyone actually has the potential to be good enough. So I just think it's a biggie. It's easier said than done. I still get it sometimes. When I came into this role, I went into the room of hops, and if you've seen my video at International Women's Day, I talked about inclusion, and one of the times I felt really included was when I joined that team because everyone was so lovely to me. But they were talking about things I didn't have a clue about. And I remember driving up the road from Manchester thinking, oh, what have I done? Like I just can't do this. This isn't me. I'm not good enough. But, if you can give yourself a shake, do it, because it's important. Everyone's good enough. Everyone's got that potential. It's just how you get there. Next bit is work hard, be supportive of others, and be upfront. Sounds basic, but people enjoy spending time with people they can trust and reliable. Remember one of my first bosses, and I always tell this story. He said to me, he was good. He was at Royal Mail all his life, a lifer as they used to call him at Royal Mail. And I said to him, how'd you get on? And he said, work hard and be sound. Now, he never actually said be sound. He said something opposite that was a bit more negative. Don't be something, but it's not something it's not the kind of language we'd use today. But I've just flipped that to say work hard and be sound. Do if you work hard, if you support other people, if you can identify when people need a bit of help, if you go and help them without them asking for it, if you can be, okay to spend time with, and that doesn't mean you need to be an extrovert, actually. Extroverts and introverts, bring their own things. As long as you work hard, supportive of other people, and you're honest, I actually think at the Co-op and NICE especially, you can do okay, because it ties in with the values we look for. Next one, don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. I live this in my life. I live it at work. There will always be someone more experienced than you. There will always be someone more knowledgeable in certain areas of you. And there will always be people that you think might be better than you. But just don't compare. And actual fact, that goes into your home life as well. I say it to my daughter who's 12, and thankfully We don't have all these beauty magazines that we had back in the 90s, and there was all that sort of stuff. But people still do compare, so it's a work thing and a home thing. Kate, I'm just going to jump in there. Multi-mission store. So, what multi-mission stores are it's hard to define them. I'd say they're big stores. Big stores. So, in terms of my stores, most of my stores are 7,000 square feet or under. Multi-mission ones would tend to be a bit bigger than that. There are big ones that I've got based in geography. So I've got Thurso, for example, which is the most northern mainland store, and it's 10,000 square foot. And I've got that for geography because it's better to send one ops manager up there than two. So that's what multi-mission stores is. Yeah, and TikTok, nah, I try to avoid that. I do watch my wife in bed. She goes on TikTok, and I think it comes up a warning when you've been on too long. So I see the warning come up, and then I see her just scroll it away. So yeah, not a fan, if I'm honest. And then my last point, actually, that I'm going to close with, this is the one that, from me, from the age of 21, 22, leaving uni, and it doesn't matter if you leave uni, if you leave school, if you leave college, moving into my first, what I felt was my first proper job, this is the one that I've used the most. So observe and listen to all the leaders you come across, the good and the bad. You'll learn a lot from them, and you can build your own leadership style from them. So if you think about your leadership style, or even if you don't want to be a leader of people, your style at work is like a jigsaw. You pick all the good bits, you discard the bad bits that are broken, and then you just build that jigsaw of your leadership style. Some of the things I've learned the most are from the leaders that I've had, none at the Co-op, thankfully, that have been what I would consider bad leaders. And I consider them bad leaders not because they weren't good at their jobs or competent, just because their behaviours were shocking. So you can pick the good and the bad, and then learn from it, build your own style, keep on observing, keep on watching, keep on adapting. And you can come across leaders and you might think, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And actually this presentation I'm taking you all through today, if you look at something and you don't disagree because it doesn't fit you, that's okay. You don't need to agree with someone just because they're a more senior leader than you. So build your own style, observe, watch the good and the bad, and be curious. So I think that's me. I think that's the end of the presentation. So I'll just, first of all, see if there's any questions in the chat, Jess, and then I can open it up.
I don't think there are any questions in the chat. We have some pre-submitted questions, if that's okay.
Oh, okay, right, ooh, good.
Oh, little interview style.
Okay.
Okay. So, the first question is, what is the biggest challenge you have faced in your role?
Ooh, honestly, is it a challenge? It's something that's always in my mind. It's the responsibility of leading, just under 3,500 people. I'm trying in Scotland, the regions got merged into one big region when I picked up, and it was called a division. I'm trying to put my own leadership stamp on it, but I've got a responsibility to look after colleagues, and I still worry about that every day. So I'm very conscious about what I do, what I say, if I'm supporting people enough within their roles. And it's probably the one thing that plays in my mind. So I wouldn't say it's a specific business problem. It's more that, am I doing enough to support everyone? So that's probably what that is. Yeah, good question.
Thank you. And then the second question is, what are your top priorities in your role day to day?
Okay, top priorities. My first one is 100% engagement. I had a good catch up with Claire Cook, who's the regional colleague voice rep for the first time, because her areas just came in at my division the other week. That's the main one. That's priority number one, because as I said earlier, it doesn't just matter if it's direct reports. If you've got 3,000 people disengaged, you're not going to get to where you want to be. In actual fact, in Scotland, I want to keep all my colleagues safe and happy. So that's number one. Number two is probably wrap it in our wider strategy for the co-op and its membership. Really building that members base. If we can increase our membership, members buy more fresh products, which has higher margin. They shop more with us, which means more money in the till, and then more money can go to community and things like that. So membership's number 2. And number 3 is, what is it? I feel like I'm at a job interview now.
Right.
Number 3 is actually probably it's probably like safety and security. So there's a few things happening just now. Some of our buildings are getting a bit older. Our stores are a bit more complex now with hot food offerings and coffee machines. It's just making sure that our stores are safe and our colleagues are safe. We do have a crime problem in Scotland, but it's not as bad as the rest of the UK because Scotland's legislated. So there now is a specific crime, and that's still a big issue. It's not as bad, but it's still always going to be in my radar. So that's probably my top 3.
Amazing. Well, there are no questions in the chat. You've answered Kate's. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen. It's very obvious that you care a lot, and that is really encouraging, especially from someone as high up as you. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone for taking your time. I really appreciate that. And I'll speak to you soon.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.